Hello there. It's a wintry day here. We had snow last night. So I got this big old sweater on today. I'm Jane Hogan, the wellness engineer, and this is Wellness by Design. So this show is all about helping people achieve wellness, not by reacting to the world around them, but by intentionally designing a life based on what their own body needs. And I like to bring science and spirituality together because I've seen now through my own experience and working with my clients and all the research that I've done that this is what leads to optimal health. So today I'm talking about living intentionally versus living by default. And this is something that really came up in my own journey. And so as a lot of you know, if you've been following me for a while, I developed rheumatoid arthritis, which is an autoimmune condition, in 2016 after a very stressful year. And I knew that stress had brought this on. So I knew that it was an emotional thing that had really triggered this. But as I got further into in my path to wellness again and all the research that I was doing, I really started looking back on my life and realizing that there is really a difference between living intentionally and not living intentionally. So not living intentionally is living by default. So basically, whatever happens to you, you just kind of take it. And you assume that other things are responsible, that you're a victim, you're powerless. When you live by design, it's a bit different because you are taking you are planning, you're taking responsibility, course correcting along the way. So I came to see this whole rheumatoid arthritis thing, seeing it as like a compass. So this gave me a compass now because I was forced to make a change. Hopefully you don't get in that situation, but I was in a situation where I was forced to make a change because I was, just about disabled. So if I was going to carry on through life like that, well, I didn't want to. So I knew I had to make changes. So I was making a decision to change. But I realized that when I started viewing this as a compass to get me back to wellness, then it made all my choices easy. So if something was bringing me negative emotions, making me feel bad physically or emotionally, well, I steered away from it. So I used it as a compass to take me towards what made me feel good emotionally and what made me feel good physically. And really, those two are intertwined. So yeah, living by default versus living by design. So this means taking responsibility for everything that happens in your life. Now, long before I got ill, I was reading a lot of personal development and stuff over the years. And I had read this book. Have you heard of Jack Canfield? He is he's the co-author of the Chicken Soup for the Soul books. And if you watch The Secret, he was in The Secret and so on. But I really liked this book. So it's called The Success Principles, How to Get from Where You Are to Where You Want to Be. And the very, very first chapter in this book, now he's not talking about an illness. He's talking about success in life. But honestly, it's the same. It's the same whether you're talking about getting over an illness, whether you're talking about success in life, whether you're talking about creating abundance in your life. All those principles are the same. It's kind of blows my mind how simple it is and how common it all is. Okay, so the very, very first chapter in his book is take 100% responsibility for your life. Now, tell someone that's got an illness that they have to take 100% responsibility for the illness. That can be a little bit of a hard pill to swallow. And I can't speak for everyone, but for me, that meant that I had to take responsibility for how I dealt with it. So that was what was taking responsibility. And actually for me, once I started looking into it further, Really, most chronic illnesses are lifestyle, are a response to a lifestyle. So it's genes that are expressing in response to the environment, and the environment is, what we're living in, our lifestyle. It's the food that we're eating, it's the thoughts that we're thinking, the feelings we're having, it's what we put on our skin and in our hair and on our face, it's the people that we're around, it's how much movement we get, it's the air we breathe. It's everything in the environment. Now, for the most part, we are pretty much in control of our environment. And so because of that, we can take responsibility, and we must take responsibility. I believe if you're going to live by design, then you have to take responsibility. So living by design means taking 100% responsibility for where you are, how you're reacting, and how you're moving on. Now, this is a good thing. You may think, do I have to take responsibility? Can't I blame this on someone else? Isn't it in my genes that I got this illness? Isn't it someone else's fault that I had to live that crappy childhood? Well, yeah, maybe, but forget all that, because the only thing we can change is our response. We have the ability to respond. Responsibility, right? So, so take 100% responsibility for your life. So Jack Canfield, I got a quote written down here. I'm going to read it so I don't mess it up. It is only by acknowledging that you have created everything up until now that you can take charge of creating the future you want. So taking charge of creating the future you want. Yes. So this means that you are in a position of power. So many people, and I'm in these different groups for rheumatoid arthritis and autoimmune and so on. And I feel bad for people because they're complaining so much about how they hurt and how they have no energy and all that. And I understand, I have empathy. I do, because I was in that position too. But the thing is that we can always choose how we respond. We can choose by complaining, or we can choose to do something about it. Even like simple things, like with the stuff that I teach, the breathing, eating real food, like these are simple things you can do. Changing your thoughts, changing your attitude. These are ways that you can change your response to a situation. And to me, that's a much more powerful way to be. That's empowerment. And that's one of the principles of Jane Hogan Health is teaching people to be empowered healers. So not just taking what comes at you, but choosing your response so that you can choose from a position of power instead of a position of feeling like a victim. Okay, so this distinction was really important, really critical in my healing journey. So I've reflected on my life a lot since getting autoimmune, because I realized that it wasn't just this one last year before the illness got triggered. It was really my whole life leading up to it. The thoughts, my thinking patterns, and all these things. Like I wouldn't say anyone lives 100% by default or 100% by design. We mix it up, right? But when I sat down and I looked at times in my life when I had lived by default, that's when I was reactive. It was when I was complaining. It was when I was blaming. It was when I was resentful. Oh, like horrible feelings, right? All of those were times when I was living by default, taking what was coming from me and reacting to it in not an intentional way. The times when I lived by design were times like when I decided I was going to go and do engineering at university, when I was deciding on a life partner, my husband Noel, when we were planning a family, when I was designing my house renovation, when I decided to become a health coach, when I decided to do something about rheumatoid arthritis. These were all times when I lived in in a position of power, when I was living by design. And when I think about those times, well, those are good feelings, right? I feel a lot better about those than when I was living living by default. So I'm just putting it out there to you. Why not look back at your life and see, when were you living by default and when were you living by design? How did you feel in those times? What feels better? I guarantee that you're going to feel, when you look back at the times when you lived by design, you felt a lot better. And if you have any inflammation or illness, this is a time, again, when you can choose to live by default or live by design. So what would you choose? I hope that you would choose to live by design. It's an intentional choice. And I really love this too. I remember reading somewhere that you get to be the writer, the producer, the director, and the actor of your own life. How beautiful is that? How beautiful is that? Yes, things will come along. We'll have ups, we'll have downs, but you always have a choice in how you respond. And you can respond reactively, so that's by default, or you can respond proactively, which is by design. All right, my friends, I hope you have a lovely day. I'd love to hear in your comments what you think about this topic. Have you thought about it much before? Is it creating some thought-provoking ideas in your head? Is it percolating down? I certainly hope so. Love to hear from you and have a little bit of a discussion on this. All right, have a great day. Bye.